Ourselves in a very peculiar situation that we've been born in America. And most of us have no clue of what we've been born into, what we actually are a part of. It's just like the universe. Inside of the universe that's surrounding us, the Milky Way, we have our sun, we have our planets going around it. And I don't know if you've ever thought about it. Have you ever thought or realized that as the planets go around the sun, it's very similar to an atom? Of how the electrons go around what? The nucleus. Okay? So everything is connected in more ways than one. And so the question is, where are we? What have we been born into? What time in history have we been born into? When we talk about last day events, yes, we will be talking about last day events. The question is, how does last day events fit in, and how do we fit into that situation? And so I try to do a preparation for us, because some of the things that you'll be hearing is some history you've heard, but you probably never connected. And so what we're going to try to do is make those connections. But before you could see some of the connections, you need to understand where you are in time. What has happened before, what is happening around us, and so forth. So, many of us have seen The Matrix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and how many know that you're in it?
That's right.
Oh, yeah. It was a movie, but now how deep are we in this rabbit hole? That is the question. Because once we're able to find out how deep we're in, then we can think, that's all, think about where we are. Now, how does this all start? When we're born into this world, we're born here, the first thing they want to do is what? Teach you, right? They have preschool, and they got school, and you go to 12th grade, then they have it. If you want to stop there, you can. And then they have other school. And so the beginning of the program of joining the Matrix is miseducation, which you start as soon as they get you a chance to read or talk about it. So that's where the programming all starts, with miseducation. And so when we look at miseducation versus true education, I guess we need to really define what is education. Now, some will say that, hey, I go to school, and as long as I can repeat the history and I can repeat it back and give it back to you the way you gave it to me, then I get an A.
Yeah.
That's Simon Says.
That's right.
That's not no education.
Right.
That's just you repeating after me, memorizing a bunch of stuff. That's not education. Education is to get you to what? Think. That doesn't get you to think. And so that's the difference between true education versus miseducation. And we have been programmed like a program, like a computer, because we're electrical beings. So we're similar to these cell phones, similar to these computers. We talk, we move around. And so basically they're programming us into a way of thinking, eating, sleeping, working. I mean, our whole life from ground zero is programmed. And so the question is, how do we get out of this program? How do we wake up? And that's what the Bible and all of this is really all about. So I call this preliminaries. Why do I call this preliminaries? Because this is the ABCs. This is the basics. If you don't understand this, you won't understand where you're going. And that's what they say. If you don't know where you came from, you're what? Bound to repeat it. And now we've heard of what we've repeated throughout the Bible, and we don't want to keep repeating that, do we? Okay, so this is where we find ourselves. at this place, and that's what I want to be able to help us. We're going to go through a little bit of history, and we're going to try to come up to what's been happening in the 60s and a whole lot of different things, so that when we start going into last day events and the first seal and the second seal and the trumpets, you start to get a plan to see how long has this thing been going on. It isn't something new. It's been something going on farther than you probably think. But let's get started. The purpose of this presentation is to prepare the minds to understand the startling things we find in ancient history and biblical history. Or versus, now what is ancient history? What is biblical history? We're going to look at that in comparison to, guess what? His story. Now his story and history are what? The same words, letters, right? So what have we been taught? His story, or really ancient history or biblical history? They're all different things, but we've been taught they're all the same because he's been what? It's his story, and he writes it. Okay? What we have been fed, what we believe, what we've been fed, just like we're feeding each other food, just like we're typing in things on a computer, we're feeding the computer. Now you are what? One with it. And we are willing to die for it. Many people were willing to die for many things. Many people died in Vietnam, Korean War, and we find out what was it over? Drugs. We find that people are still dying. I remember when one of the first things I think about is when we grew up on cowboys and Indians, right? Who were the good guys?
Cowboys. Come on now.
Okay. And who was the bad guy? But who in reality, once we've come to knowledge,
Right.
who was really the bad guy? And who was the real good guy? Okay. So that's what I want us to start to see. If we were blinded on that level, how deep is that's just a basic level. And if we got caught up in that, how deep do we really are in? And our goal is to help us to start thinking through, because that's the key. True education is to help us think. And once we start thinking, then we're a little different. And now most of us are died for. So they said you go to your country and you die for your country. I remember my daughter, she was in high school and she was speaking with her male friends, black male friends, and they were saying they want to go to Desert Storm and kill off some of the Iraqis. And she asked them, why are you going to do that? Oh man, because they're enemies of the state. The state of who? Whose mindset? Right. So she's talking to them, and they're saying, he said, but then she asked the question, what have they done for you? They enslaved you, they do all this, and you're going to go fight a war? Them people over there never shot a bullet at you, they never killed you, they never done a thing to you. Right. And so now they started thinking, wow. So that's what I'm saying, thinking. They were ready to go kill people, commit murder. Because what? We were told to. And we said yes. Now these are young men. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad, sis, you talking to the brothers. Wake them up. Boys are going to die, or, commit murder. Now, the Bible says, thou shalt not kill. Why does he say that? Well, right now we're finding out when young people go out to war and they come back, what do they have? What is it?
PhD.
Okay, they relive it, and it's, it affects them for the rest of their life. Some commit suicide. They said those that come back, why? Because you have violated the law of Yahweh. And these are the consequences. But see, we don't look at it that way. And so that's why I said some of these things we're willing to die for. That is pretty sad. To help us understand how health, the 9 pathways to health. People of color in the Bible and last day events play vital roles in awakening us from the deception we have been fed. So we're going to look at some of these. You probably thinking, well, what does health got to do with all this? Oh my goodness, what do you mean what does health got to do with all this? That's how you think. If your mind is all clogged up with McDonald's and, the dollar menu, you ain't thinking. You just, you just a droid, or a zombie as they call it. You're dead, walking dead. So that's one aspect. And understanding your role as a person of color, where does that fit in? And then on top of that, then how will that relate to last day events? See, all of these are tied together. They're not separate subjects. Everything is tied together. And so we cannot keep departmentalizing everything. That's what they want us to do. That's miseducation. We have to be able to look at everything holistically. Mind, body, and soul. And so when the Yahweh worked with me, he had me get into the health message so I can get my mind clear. Okay, hey, you need to wake up, bro. So he got me on the health message back in '76. Then he said, okay, now I need to help you understand some other things. And I got into, the Bible, into spirituality. So I was I was at college trying to work in my degree. So I was trying to understand the 3 major areas: your health, your spirituality, and being able to think. And so we have to look at all of these things and be holistic in everything that we do. Now, under these conditions, is there hope for us in our present condition? Yes? No? No, there ain't no hope in that condition. You gotta get out of that condition. If you think you're gonna stay in that condition, you can believe you ain't no hope. You're willing to kill for what? Because the man said so. I don't know nothing about real history. I just know what he tells me. I'll kill an Indian. I mean, come on, guys. Hey, there's no hope in that condition.
Come on.
We have to come out of the matrix. We have to realize that where we are and in what circumstances we find ourselves in. That's the most important part. Now, I want us to think. Thanksgiving. Y'all remember that, right? You have that every year? When we look at Thanksgiving, what do you think of? And what I want to do is compare the Bible to our understanding of Thanksgiving. Okay? So keep that in mind as we go through this. Sometimes I lose people because they be like, what does that got to do with it? Okay. What is the Bible? What is it? This is a question to you guys. It's scriptures, okay. It's history. It's a book. It's a history. It gives history. It gives health laws. It gives a lot of different things. The Bible is a book written by who? Some said Yahweh, I heard already. Say it again. Jesus, I hear. Prophets, scribes. Moses. Hebrews. So there we go. We are written by who? Hebrews. Okay? Yes, all of these people are correct, but they're all what? Hebrews. That's the key. Now remember the first one, it was written by God. Was it written by God? I don't think you wrote one. But he used faithful people. But my point is, he was written for who? Who's it written for? That's right. But the world will tell us, no, it was written for everybody. The book is by everybody, it's for everybody, because we're not in it and we need to get in it. That's what the Europeans say. So we trying to say, hey, somebody else is in there, but we need to get in there because we're left out. And it's written, it was written by who, it was written for who, and it was written about Hebrew. Now they'll tell you, you know, when we went to church, they said it was written for what? All people. This is all people stuff.
Right.
Why? Because the Europeans are left out and we got to be part. So, hey, we got to be part of this. So that's what we look at. We can put this in a different category. Okay, let us look at American history. What history is the true history? I mean, you know what he told you in school, because we all been through the school system, right?
Nothing.
Okay, so what is real, the real American history? We can look at it in 3 categories, okay? What 3 categories do you think we can look at it in?
Truth.
Truth, okay.
What they tell us.
What they've told us.
Which is not the same thing.
That is correct. Okay. We have it from an African slave trade position. So from an African, this was not the best thing. From a European, this is the joint. Slave master says, hey man, this is the way it's supposed to be. You my slave, me your master.
Come on now.
That's it. And then the president said that he wants to bring back what? Make America great. When was America great?
Never.
No, it was great in their viewpoint. In their viewpoint. It's his story. Y'all, hey, he's not talking about y'all. He's talking about, he said when America was great, when the black man and woman knew their place. Now y'all all high and mighty, and now y'all can read, and y'all just like, acting like y'all supposed to be something. And y'all don't know your place. That's when America was great. And that's where he wants to take us back to. See, he's telling us what he wants to do. The question is, do we understand what he's saying? Okay, then we have it from the Native American viewpoint. Okay. So if you hear it from the Native American viewpoint, it's an entirely different story. So we have at least 3 different viewpoints. Which one is false, or which ones are false, and which ones are true? Depends on who you are. But what happened to the Native American, you can't lie about it like the Cowboys and Indians, Okay? We can't, now I don't know if you know, but in Texas they said that, there was no slavery in America. That we came over as indentured servants. So, you're just like everybody else is coming over now. We're coming over because what? The streets are paved with gold. That's what they've been told by the missionaries. And they come over and realize there's no streets of gold here. There is a place called Paradise, but it did get burned down. They do believe they got heaven on earth, no question about it. Okay, so this is, then I'm trying to get us to realize, what have we been born into? This is all going on around us unless we understand and be able to distinguish. How many of us have been able to distinguish this before? I mean, when I was a kid, I couldn't distinguish nothing. I just believed it all. And then if you didn't believe it, then they whip you. In school, put out your hands, you're not cooperating.
Right.
Okay, so this is why I'm trying to get us to realize where we are in. Why do we celebrate Thanksgiving? Good food, okay. It was supposed to be that the pilgrims supposed to be thanking the Native Americans for saving them and teaching them how to survive through the winter. That's what it's supposed to be about. Okay, that was the story. And so the reward is to enslave, put them in concentration camps called what? Reservations. Okay? And so that's what we're talking about. So that's what Thanksgiving has become. Okay? Okay, let's say everyone has some land and you dig it in your backyard and you dig up a book. And it's a book of stone. Okay? And it's written 1,000 years ago. Now, there's a few questions that need to be asked. Whose book is it? Same question we've been asking all day, right? Whose book is it? Mine, okay? The person who's in their backyard, they say it's theirs, okay? It's written, okay, I mean, who was here? I mean, there's only one language 1,000 years ago. It sure ain't no English. That's right, it's a Native American. That's whose book it is. So, I mean, we just, you know, what are we? Are we illegal aliens? I mean, the president keeps saying that we're keeping out the illegal aliens. Wait a minute, the Native Americans, this is their land. They moved to Mexico because we kicked them out. Now they want to come back and we say, no, you can't come back and you're an illegal alien. When what? We are the true illegal aliens, colonialists, and they are the true. And so how has things become so backward? That we're willing to what? Block, put up walls, and kill people for what? Okay? So let us think about it. How many of us have been thinking about that? I mean, a lot of people are not, you know, I remember I spoke with one friend of mine, he was white, and so he was saying, why do you guys call yourself African Americans? Don't y'all understand y'all are Americans? And I'm saying, yo man, we're African Americans because we came from Africa. You're a European American. No, not no European. Listen, you came over here and you colonized, brother. You are not the real deal. And he was angry with me for telling him the truth. I mean, he doesn't even, it's not even in his brain set. So, and that's where some of us are. I'm sure you can run across, some people say, no, I'm young people, they don't call me no African American. I know African American, I ain't got nothing to do with Africa. Really? Do you understand the mindset of what we're dealing with? We're not just dealing with black people's mindset, we're dealing with white people's mindset too. All of us are in this pot that we have been stirred around, and all are what? Miseducated. Do you own that land? Do you own the land that you're buying? Who owns the land? Oh, okay, good. Because some people say, no, man, that's my land. I own it. Yeah, as soon as I'm paying your taxes, the boy's kicking you out. Eminent domain. Is it the counterfeit American government? Because the real one is in the concentration camp. But they call that reservation, so. His story again, not the true story, is the true Native American, it is a true Native American book. So what does that mean? Who can interpret the book? Who will interpret the book? No, someone said Yahweh. Who else? The people it belongs to. Who is it? Native American. Okay, but who will interpret the book? Okay, who can really interpret it is not given the book to interpret. He got to put his story in there. Okay? So, the Europeans are going to interpret the Native American history, tell them who their story is, and then if they don't cooperate, we can, you know, line you up and shoot you. Right. What should we believe? These are vital questions that have to be asked. Whose book is it? Whose book is it?
Native American.
Native American. Can everyone read the book? Sure, everybody can read the book. That doesn't mean they understand it. It's the same thing with the Bible. Whose book is it? Okay. Who can read it?
Everybody.
How many people read it? Everybody reads it. And whose book is it? It's everybody's book according to them. There you go again. The same trick that we just saw. And that's why I said I wanted to make that comparison so you could see. If I just go through this now, you'd be saying, well, I don't want to follow that. But now that you know how it works, the cradle of civilization may lie there. Where? In Africa. When we look at the Bible, again, whose book is it? Everyone can read the book. Is it everyone's book? The European would have you believe so. They stole it from what? They wrote it to write his story. Okay? So, now you need to question the Bible. Who is been interpreting this book for us? Is he qualified? He said he is. Then you tell me what denomination, tell me what organization does not follow his interpretation. I'm listening. There is none. You go up the chain, if you're in a Catholic church, you go up the chain, all of them white boys at the top. If you go in a Baptist, Methodist, Pentecostal boys at the top, you might have your black, Methodist church, your black, but hey, when they pin the money back up, it goes right back up to the same people.
That's right.
Now, let me ask you, when you go to these theology schools, rabbi schools, any of these schools, whose interpretation are you getting?
Right.
And that's why I ask you, who's reading? Who? And so that's why I wanted to make that clear comparison. I think we can understand very clearly what happened to the Native American. So if that's what happened to them, and so the way I look at it is, so they take this book, they take it from you, so no longer yours. So we're going to interpret it, Europeans interpret it, okay, now we're going to put it in a museum. And everybody's going to read it. Then some Native Americans start reading it, say, that's not what it says. Wait a minute, what you mean that's not what it says? No, that's not the traditions. That's not how we interpret. No. And so that's where we are today. When we reread the Bible, all of the scholars, I remember they were saying that most of the time when you go to these theology schools and other schools, rabbi schools, who are they quoting? They're quoting each other.
Right.
They're not quoting. They say so-and-so said it, Rabbi so-and-so said, and what's his name, preacher so-and-so said, and bishop so-and-so said, and the Pope said, and...
Right.
Wait a minute, man. Well, it's clear you cannot interpret this book. And the interpretation you have given us was usually through the 1600s. What was going on in the 1600s? What had just happened in 1492?
Spanish influence.
They say it's America, but there was something else going on. Huh? The Inquisition, but there was some other things. Well, Inquisition was against, white on white. It wasn't on, we were enslaved. Yeah, we deal with the Moors. Yeah, we got some other things. And that's what I'm going to get ready to see. See, every time they throw out a big event, you can know there's a cover-up. There's something coming up.
Come on, that's right.
That's the key. And that's what I'm trying to get us to think. So when they start saying, look left, you know they look right. Do not be fooled. Be not be fooled by the brethren. It is a book by Hebrews, written to Hebrews, written for Hebrews, written about Hebrews for the time they live in. But that's not how we've been given to interpret it, is it? No, that's not how we've been given to interpret it. So before we can understand last day events, we need to understand who this book and what this thing is about. Otherwise, you just going right down the rabbit hole. That's why I asked you, how deep is the rabbit hole? It is very deep. And this is for the what? Last days that we live in. Now, when we talk about last days of that we live in, these are vital questions. Everyone can read the book, learn the cradle of their civilization. Who is really going to read the book? How many people really read the book? I heard people say that they've been in church for 40 years. They haven't even finished reading the book yet. I heard that a lot of pastors have never read the book. When you go to theology school, do you think this is what you're studying? No, you're quoting the other guy. Hey, what did so-and-so say? And this is what... So they don't even know it's in the book.
Right.
So, they're probably saying that, brother, He must be angry. He must be an angry black man talking like that. No, the real question is, whose book is it? Written to Hebrews, written about Hebrews, written for Hebrews, especially for the last days. To give his story, not the true story. Who's going to give his story, not the true story? The same guy who's been giving us all of these stories. Who should interpret the book? They say they are. Do you know anybody else interpreting the book? You heard any other Bible commentaries? What is a Bible commentary? They were written in the 1500s, 1600s, and we need to find out why they write what they write. And everybody keeps quoting them over and over and over and over. So don't think because we go to the European Jews and we get trained by them that we're okay. Why wouldn't you be okay? They're Jews, right? Tell me, why wouldn't you be okay? How can they interpret something that's not theirs? They have to put it in their what? Story. So now it's not the truth, it's his story. And that's what it says. He gives us to give us his story. And that's all we are given. So how do we start re-looking at the scripture from another viewpoint? How is that possible? Well, if you never think about it, you never do it. But who interprets the book? Then tell us what to believe in the book. Let me give you a good example. We were studying this morning, and it talked about that we're no longer under the law. That's the big one. That's what they love. Yes, we are nailed to the cross. Amen. Praise the Lord. Now let me go out here and do whatever I need to do. It's very interesting that when you read that in Galatians, there's a bunch of laws. There's the law of the will in Romans 7. There's the law of the flesh. There's the law of sin and death. There's the law of Yahweh. There's this law of the spirit of life. Now, which law are we talking about? Oh man, let's get rid of all of them. And who's telling us this? The people who've been telling us his story. What to believe. Because he says you got to do away with all this because we got to start murdering and enslaving you guys. So what y'all talking about? That's all against it. So that's where the key falls. And it tells us very clearly that in Romans chapter 8, there is therefore now no condemnation to them which in Yeshua the Messiah who walk not after the flesh but after the spirit. For the law, what law? The law of the spirit of life. So most people never knew that the spirit has a what? Law. The law of the spirit of life had made me free from the law. And if you stop right there, amen. Praise the Lord. We got it all. See, I told you. All you got to do is read the next read, the law of sin and death. So that's the law he's talking about. Yes, it's been nailed to the cross. Yes, it's gone. That is so definite. If you walk in the Spirit. If you don't walk in the Spirit, nope. The law of sin and death is still ruling and reigning in your life. And so that's what Romans 7 is all about. So I'm just saying, so we got to be careful of who we listen to. Because the brethren have got this on lockdown. They are not, first of all, you have to ask them, if this isn't your book, what gives you the right to interpret it? Why are Europeans interpreting it? Because we're in charge. Amen. That's right. That's the way it's supposed to be. Now get in your place. And that's what Trump is telling us. We want to be what? Great again. And we can't be great again with these black people talking like this. We need them boys brought back under subjection. So all the churches are set up what? On the top is what? Come on. All the boards. And we wondering why we can't go nowhere. Why things aren't changing. Why? Because we're in a what? A program that have been set. And all we are just what? You can say pawns, that's not a computer. You just the what? The computer. And they are just writing their code. And you just, yes, master. Writing the code. And that's why they said that the cell phones are what? Doing what? Brain hacking us. Did you know you're getting brain hacked? You're getting brain hacked. And you wonder why why you're addicted to this thing. They said people don't even talk to each other no more. You could be in the same house and you set up, hey, son or daughter. I'm like, yo, do you know what a cyborg is? What is a cyborg? Part human and part computer. And what are we? Nobody wants to say it. Now tell me, if you do all of this all the time, don't be telling me you know. If you can't even talk to your neighbor or talk to your friend, tell me what you are. We are cyborgs. And the next generation is getting more and more such that they're taking out books. So what will they know?
Whatever they tell them.
They said they don't. I spoke to my grandson. I said, you got to learn the timetable. He said, no, I don't, because they said we don't need to learn that no more. I teach at college in Pennsylvania and different places, and in Maryland, and I give them fractions. They said they don't know how to do fractions. I said, what you doing in college? What are you doing in engineering?
Right.
And when you want to know when the planes are falling out the sky, look who's doing it. And I told them, I said, listen, I was in New York teaching, a white school. I was teaching Pennsylvania, another white school. And I told them, listen, if you will not get out of my class if you do not know how to do fractions. Period. You don't know how to find the common denominator. No way, man. They said everybody else passed them on. I said, I don't care. You took calculus? How could you take calculus? Please. I don't even believe any of the stuff y'all got. And they got mad with me. And they reported me. And I went into the dean's office and asked him, hey, do you know that these guys don't know how to do? He said, oh yeah, we know they don't know how to do fractions. What is your problem, man? Listen, man. So, but my point is, they are what? They said all I gotta do is type it in a calculator. Well, they're doing all the thinking for me. I don't have to do any thinking. That makes you a what? A cyborg. Let's call it by its right name. If you don't want to be a cyborg, just say I don't want to be one and start, making changes. Or just fall in line and just be programmed. That's why we said the beginning of this is what? The program. The matrix. We're in it.
Right.
And we're loving it. That's the problem. So do you think you're going to understand what last day events is? No way, man. You're going to say this is the way the world goes, man. And I love it. So you're going to say, no way. How many of you heard about the real ID? They have it in India and other places. And now, I don't know here. Yeah, I heard here. Did y'all got to get it? How many got it? All right. Did y'all didn't opt out? Yeah, I got to tell them, man, I want to opt out. Okay, what is the real ID? Okay, the real ID, the way they want it is like in India. I mean, you can go on YouTube and type in real ID in India. And they implemented it full force because they said they want to see it with billions of people. We only got millions here. We want to see it billions. So they put it in India. And so they had it that they take your facial recognition, they take your eye scan, and they take your fingerprints. And all of that is all put on your real ID. That's the end goal. So that means they got to have a chip in there. They got to have something in there to keep all that information. And so, when you go on YouTube, they'll show you this Indian guy, and they're saying people, because he works with blocks and cement blocks, his fingers mess up, and he went and they said that they don't match, so he can't get paid. They said that other people's things have dropped out and women can't feed their kids. So this is what we're talking about, okay? So this is already here. We're already in a police state. They already monitor anywhere and everywhere we go. Now we're giving them that. So this is what we're talking about. Matter of fact, people are looking for it. They want convenience so much that they're willing to do what? Do anything to give it up. And that's where we are. We're addicted to what? Convenience. And they know that. And so they just keep feeding it to us so that you don't even have to drive your car soon, right? They can drive it for you. That's right. So what will you be doing? You know what you're going to be doing, just what you're doing now. Just at a higher what? Higher, and then you'll be deeper yet. And so we need to try to understand what's really going on. We really do. Let me get this right here. You can pause it right there and I'm waiting on this to come back. What has the church been hiding from us in the teaching of the 144,000 versus Bible and church history? Now, I assume you guys are figuring church history and what they're saying are two different things. Okay, when we look at the timeline, we want to look at some timeline so that you can see where we find ourselves in today. Because we could go back, quite a bit. As we said, something happened in 1492, around that time frame. In 1954, the start of the Civil Rights Movement. Y'all remember that? Okay. There was a whole lot of other things going on. Okay? I'm going to try to help you see what was going on according to a timeline. Now, we're going to use like 40 years for one generation. Okay? I'm looking at it as it relates to today. We have the civil rights around this period. Then in 1959, did you know that that's when they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls? That's around the same time frame. 5 years difference. Okay, so if we look here, from 1950, 1954, there was some events going on. And we see the civil rights movement started around 1954. And then we had the Dead Sea Scrolls at 1959. And then in the 1960s, black study programs at several American universities. Did y'all know that? See, everything was changing, okay? Now, what happened with these guys who were teaching this Black Studies program? Okay, so we got the Black Study program going on here. And that's when that many of the black scholars started to write. One was Dr. Ben. He was a Ethiopian Jew, okay? He had that. And guess what happened? He presented it. You had Dr. Clark. You had Ivan Van Sertiman. You had all the brethren. And were they accepted by the church? They were telling us that the people in the Bible were who? Black people. And what response do you think the church gave them?
I know, right?
There was heresy. You got it. Well, why was it heresy? Who was interpreting the book? We're back to where we just said. They listened to the boys who were writing their history who has no right to interpret it. Okay? And so that's where we find ourselves. Okay? So, that's when, in 1950, they created what is called the African Society of Classical African Civilization. Okay, that's what Dr. Clark and the rest of them had started. ACA, I believe that's how it was pronounced. In the beginning of my book, and then in the 1990s, when we were rejected, okay, back in the 70s, and that's when they assassinated all our leaders and so forth, and everything went away. And I remember, I went to college. I came to college in 1974 and said, yes, I can be part of the revolution.
Yes.
I came to Howard, they said, man, that was over, bro. They done killed everybody. Ain't nobody standing. I said, y'all gotta be kidding. Nah, man, it is over. And there was nothing I could do. I came to, be part. They said, no, brother, it's over, you're too late. I said, okay. So I went about my way, doing my thing. And then as time went on, in the 70s, they were rejected, and Yahweh impressed upon me to write the book, People of Color in the Bible. That was written in the 1990s, early 90s. You think it was accepted? Okay. Are we talking about a generation from the 50s to the 90s? 40 years. Remember we talked about that? Okay. So there's a new group of people that's rising up for the next generation. And that's the question. Who is that? That's us sitting in here. Now the question is, what are we going to do, young people, middle grade people? What are we going to do? See, this is the generation. I think about it when you go into, they left Egypt, right? And then for 40 years they wandered in the wilderness because what? That generation could not go in. And it takes the next generation. And so this is what I'm saying. This is the next generation. The boys rejected this. They could not go in. So now it is up to us to repeat history again. Will we go in, or will we do like the rest of them? See, this is us. See, this is what they're hiding from you in the church. You gotta see, I'm pulling all the documentation out. Okay, now what happened? The Moors ruled Spain and Portugal. Did y'all know that? Is it in the history books? Okay. For 700 years. So remember I asked you what happened in 1492? They were pushed out. That's what happened in 1492. Over 1,000 years of deception until when? Today. Over 1,000 years of this miseducation that we're talking about. Okay. The official use of propaganda came into existence when? 1622. And it was called the propagation of the what? Whose faith? There ain't no Christian faith. Whose faith? The same people. His story. He says that now legally I can teach propaganda. Yes, what is propaganda? Lies and more lies. They get you to what? To propagate the faith. And have we been propagating the faith? Yes, we've been propagating their faith. And you can be brainwashed, subliminal subduction, you name it. We call it social engineering. And I remember I was at college and I did my senior, you have to come up with a senior project and a senior dissertation, a senior seminar. And so I did mine on cybernetics. I said, okay. So I was going back to the 50 years in the Church of Rome by Chiniquy and pulling out that, hey, these guys are being brainwashed. And then I used the control system like you use for your car. You press, cruise, right? And it's supposed to maintain. So when you're going up the hill, what is it supposed to do? It's supposed to detect that and then give more gas. And when you're coming down the hill, it's supposed to detect that and slow down. That's what we call control system. And you don't think they're doing that to us? That's called social engineering. So I did my presentation on that. And he was so furious with me, the chairman. He was the chair also at the time. And he told me, Emanuel, I would have flunked you. I said, you're going to flunk me? Why? Now you know you ain't supposed to be doing this. And he told me, well, you're gonna pay because you'll be the last person to present. I said, okay. So I was the last person to present. And we're going over, cybernetics of how it's applied to humans and how they're using it. And they were, we stayed a half an hour over class, still discussing it. And he said he's gonna flunk me. And I said, this is the best one, man. So it's really ridiculous. And he said, listen, man, this is what they're gonna do. They're gonna call you in their office. They're gonna tell you to sit down. They're gonna press a button and they're gonna shoot you down a hole and they're gonna be there and arrest you and take you off to the farm. He said, because what you doing, man, you trying to wake up the people, man. You're just supposed to be, not rock the boat. And so this is why I'm sharing what I'm sharing and why we must share it. And so that's why when it talks about the official thing of propaganda, so guess what was done in 1611? Some say it's the scriptures. Some say it's what?
King James.
King James. And some say it's canonized. But notice what it says. It says it's the what? Authorized. What does authorized mean? That the boys have said, this is, we bless it, we sanction it, and you teach it the way we tell it. And so, now the interesting part is, notice these dates up here. We got from 700 AD to 1492. What happened? So they have 100 years from into 1500s all the way to the 1600s, 100 years. Guess what they're writing? All the Bible commentaries. That's what you're going to find that they're all quoting. They're quoting all these Bible commentaries, and during this time the Pope said that because black people ruled Europe, you will be perpetually slaves. That's what the church said. You can read it. Then they started pumping out what? The authorized King James Bible. Then they said, now after that, 11 years later, we can what? Propagate the faith. And you, as our cyborgs, will do that. Yes, what else can we do? Do we know anything else to do? So, they erased history. Do you hear me? They erased history. So there are no more black people in the book, except Nimrod. Yeah, we got to make sure he's in there. The enemy of the state. So they erased history between that time frame. Can y'all see that? It literally erased history. Then they started authorizing scholars. So now we're going to rewrite everything and we're going to put the Bible commentaries. And now if you agree with this, and once you go to our schools, do you have to teach what we say? And now we are sanctioning you. We're blessing you. Authorized, sanction what? Scholars. Then we find out that during these times also that they were burning the writings. Now, do you understand what's going on? That's why I said we need to understand what we have been born into. See, if we don't understand that, then we're going to take last day events and misunderstand it because we don't understand where we are in time. And that's when they put things in what? They took all the stuff from Africa and put it where? In dungeons. And they took all the literature, and what did they say? Now we have the new book. We have taken out all that we want, the forbidden books, and if you read some of that Enoch and all that stuff, be careful. That's what they tell you. So you can be for sure there's something good in it. Okay, so what else in church history? This is the time of the heretics. You can remember this guy? John the Baptist, the Messiah, Stephen, they were all considered what? Heretics. And they were all what? Killed, burned to the stakes, beheaded, crucified. For 200 years of deception until today. 2,000 years. Okay. Now, what happened during this 2,000 years? This is called the Dark Ages. I'm not talking about the Dark Ages of Europe. Y'all don't really understand what I mean by the Dark Ages. But that's when the boys started rolling. And we know we've been in the Dark Ages. Okay, so let's look at this for a minute. We have during the 1960s, which we talked about, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization, ASCAR, that's what Dr. Ben and the rest of the boys set up, and they were rejected, terminated. And then we had the Roman Church Council. Y'all remember that? From the 300s to the 700s. Okay, what were they doing in there? Oh my goodness, they were just putting things together so that the church can what? Rule. We have the Messiah around 33 AD, put to death. We have the stoning of Stephen. Then we have the church council. That they, look at what they're doing. They're saying, hey, during this time frame, we're going to do that. And then the Moors rule. And then 1600s, what else is happening? We have the John the Baptist death. And then we have the church says that we can preach propaganda. Now, do y'all know what propaganda is? What is propaganda? So somebody tells me that, brother, that's just, marketing. Yeah, man, I'm just marketing you. I'm just brainwashing you. And I'm saying, wow, you mean it's legal? I don't know if y'all remember in the past, they used to have films, and every 60 seconds, you would have, 60 slides go through in a second. And so they would put a popcorn or a soda in there, just one. Your eyes, and it would register in your subconscious, and then you would go buy the popcorn and they would sell out. Yeah. And they said that was illegal. But the church said it's legal. Wow. So this is what we're talking about. That's why I said you need to know what we were born into. 6,000 years of sin. During the first 2,000 years, we have Africans teaching from around 4,000 BC to around 404 BC. Then we have the African Hebrews, Abraham, moving forward until the time of the Messiah, till around 30 BC, when the Messiah was started his ministry, and he had his disciples. Then we find that Paul's writing started around 39. And then we have the big Roman church starting at 500 and ruling to what? 1960s. And now we have the teachings of the 144,000. Did you know in Acts, you can write some of these scriptures down, you might want them. Acts chapter 22, verses 3 and 4. I am verily a man, which am a Jew, born of Tarsus, in the city of Sicily, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law. What were the people that followed the Messiah was called? Notice what it says. According to the perfect matter of the law of the fathers. And a zealous toward Elohim. As ye all are this day. And I persecuted this way. Unto the death. Binding and delivering into prison both men and women. Verses 4 and 5. Notwithstanding, that I be not further tedious unto thee. I pray thee that thou wouldest hear us of thy clemency. A few words. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and the ringleader of the what? I thought they were called Christians. That's correct. They're called the sect of the Nazarene, the ringleader. Notice what else they're called. Chapter 18 of Acts. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus were come unto Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the spirit and testified to the Jews that Yeshua was the Messiah. And when they opposed him and blasphemed, he shook his raiment and said unto them, your blood be upon your own head. I am clean. From henceforth I go unto the Gentiles. Also, they were called the sect of the Nazarene and people of the way. That's what they were also called. Now, under heresy, the leading African study professors, who we talked about already, helped establish the ASCAT, which is clearly advocated this, excuse me, perception of, in their writings, their perspective in this writing. On the other hand, the official black church organizations rejected these teachings as heresy at this time. Do you know that people are getting kicked out of the church for teaching what you guys are talking about? Some of y'all might have got kicked out. How many of y'all got kicked out of church for teaching this stuff? Some say they left their reside. I got kicked out. People are still getting kicked out. And this is, hey, and this is, but now the question is, should we expect this? Or should we be expecting that they're going to receive? Have they ever? Okay, so let's keep it in mind. The church viewpoint was that the authorized King James Version of the Bible and its Eurocentric view was complete. People accepted the pictures as the absolute word of God. This was not to be challenged or questioned by black scholars. When we hear about Alexander, Apollos, a certain Jew named Apollos, born in Alexandria, an eloquent man, and mighty in scriptures, came to Ephesus. This man was instructed in the ways of Yahweh. And being fervent in spirit, he spake and taught diligently the things of Yahweh, knowing only the baptism of John. And he began to speak boldly in the synagogues. How many groups did we have then? We had the Pharisees, we had the Sadducees, we had the Nazarenes. Who were the Nazarenes? The sect of the Nazarenes. We just talked about them. Those are the followers of the Messiah. We have the Essenes, we have the Zealots, we have the Rhodians, and they just keep going on. Now, if we had all those sects then, how many sects do we have today? Okay? Everybody proclaiming what? We got the truth. Notice what it says in Acts. It says here, and he departed thence and entered into a certain man's hand named Justus, one that worshipped Elohim, whose house joined hard to the synagogue. And Cyprus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed on Yahweh with all his house. And many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed and were baptized. So we see also here what happens with the stoning of Stephen. Acts chapter 7 verses 54, 57, and 58. When they heard these things, they were cut to the heart. So when we teach the truth, what is going to happen? We're going to be cutting them to the heart. Or it's really not us, it's the spirit of Yahweh is cutting them to the heart. And they gnashed their teeth against him. Then they cried out with one voice and stopped their ears. What did they do? You think they're hearing you? Stopped their ears and ran upon him with one accord and cast him out of the city and stoned him. And so when we look here at this history, which we just talked about, the 2,000 years of deception that has been going on, and we talked about what happened in the 60s, what happened from 300 to 700 AD, the stoning of Stephen, the church council, the Moors ruling, the books being burned, the church propaganda. When you look at this over one generation, remember this was what? 40 years in the wilderness. We leave Egypt, in the 1960s, we rejected the truth. The 40 years later, or the millennial, 40 years later, what do we have? Is the next generation ready to make of the 144,000? Are we ready? Are we ready to be a perfected people? Jews kicked out of Rome. Did you know that they kicked the Jews out of Rome? In chapter 18 of Acts, after these things, Paul departed from Athens and came to Corinth and found a certain Jew named Aquila and Priscilla, lately come from Italy, with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had commanded all Jews to depart from Rome, and came unto them. When we look at this 6,000 years what we've been talking about of sin, and what has been going on, the African teaching, the African Hebrew teachings, the Messiah's teaching, then the Rome teaching. So when I'm talking about the first 2,000 years, look at that. We have the African teachings. That's when you had Adam, that's when you had Enoch and all of them. Then we had the African Hebrew teachings. That was Abraham, and we're moving forward till it came to the Messiah. Then from that time frame all the way up until today is what? 2,000 years of what we call the Dark Ages. And when we study about the last days, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let me see if I can run through this. That's what it first called Christians by the people of Antioch. And as we mentioned earlier, during the civil rights, during the time period that we're living in, this is the time you're getting a little pattern of history in the last few, and that one generation has already turned away, and now we're the next generation, and are we going to go through? That's the question. Because we don't have to go through to the promised land. It's up to us. But as long as we can see history repeating itself, we would hope that we would want to make that next journey. So he says what we need to do, 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 15, study to show yourself approved unto Yahweh, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed. And basically, the teachings that we have been taught makes us ashamed, isn't it? I mean, it's shameful. So, you know, they've been saying that we were nothing to do with this, that, and the other, and we're finding out because we haven't studied, we are nothing. But as we study, then we realize the truth. And that's where the issue comes in. Now, some people, you know, young people, a lot of people are taught not to study now. Do not learn your multiplication timetable. Do not learn how to spell. None of that matters now. Now the question is, it isn't, I mean, some people read the Bible like it's a newspaper. It didn't say read the Bible. It didn't say that. Now, let me ask you a question. What does it mean to study? Do we know how to study? How many people think they know how to study? Well, that's not many. That's not many. That's not many. All right. What's your definition of study? Since y'all raised your hands. Going over it 3 or 4 times. Okay. Good point.
Keeping things in its proper context at all times.
Keep things in the proper context. Okay. Meditate on it. Yeah, you do. Apply it. That's correct. Read until you can explain it to someone else. Good point. Excellent, excellent.
Understanding what the words are actually meaning.
What they're meaning. That's right. Sometimes you got to look up some of these words. You don't understand the word. You ain't seen it. Making valid connection, line upon line. Here a little, there a little.
Taking it not just back to the original language, but back to its textual position as well.
That's
so
right.
Learning the history
Right.
of people, learning the culture, learning what was the scenario so that you can understand what was being said.
Okay, good, because we're going to talk about time, why that time is important. Okay. Now, as an engineer, when I came to college, I didn't know how to study. I had a D average when I graduated from high school. You know, nobody cared about any of that stuff. Then I said that the guidance counselor told all the black kids, we was at a Lutheran school, so we paid to go to school. Majority white. They told all the black students, you'll either be a bum, you'll be in jail, or you'll be on drugs.
Wow.
And told all the white children, you're going to be the next president, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be the doctors, and you're going to run the society. And I said, really? I said, because of that, I'm going to college now. That was not in my plan. That was not in my plan. I was doing just that's what she told me. Yeah, you're going to be one of them. I said, no, I don't think so. Now that you told me that, we're changing that. And so that's what I did. So I applied to Howard, and they said they accepted me only, you had a D average. They said, we're only accepting you because of your math SAT scores. You have good math SAT scores. Maybe we can make something out of it. So I went and so forth. And I didn't know how to study, seriously. Most people don't know how to study. So I met this guy who was a civil engineer, chemical engineer. He was graduating. And I told him, okay, hey, how am I supposed to study? You graduated. He said, this is how you do it. You, whatever you're given, read the chapter before the teacher covers it. Then, and you might not understand what you read. That's first of all. You might not understand it. So don't act like, you got it. Then, when you go to class, then some of the stuff you read, you're going to hear. And it'll start making a little more sense. Then you go home and you read it. And now it's going to make more sense. And then you do every problem in that chapter. And then when you finish, when you take your exams, you're acing. And I did that. And I did that. And I did 21-day cleanse programs. I was a vegetarian in '76. I would go through programs. That's why we learned it on campus. They were teaching people how to be vegetarian, how to change their lives. And I was there, and so from then to now, I do 21-day cleanses on every feast so that my mind can be clear. And I remember we were doing that, and we would come out during the springtime, and like the flowers would light up, things were, life was different. When you go through all those places, and I'm like, wow, this is like a trip. I'm really tripping. And I ain't taking no drugs. I'm only taking raw food and juice. That's it. And so I was able to do that through my bachelor's, through my master's, and my doctorate program. And so different things helped in that regards, for your mind to be open so you can be clear. The Creator has us so that, He wants us to be clear so that we can study. And so over the years, that's what I learned. And so when I studied the Bible, I studied it like I was studying engineering. Now I remember one of my, the church I was kicked out of, he told me, he said, what did he say? He told, we was in Bible study. And so we would bring in the Sabbath. We'd come early in the morning, 9 o'clock. We'd be there all day, have lunch. Then they'll have study until sunset. So we're in there studying and so forth. And so he'll quote this or he'll say this, and I'm looking it up, checking out all of them. I said, I don't see that on that page. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm over here, So I think he thought I was like, pastor. But I'm saying, listen, man, you see that scripture? I ain't taking this scripture serious. I'm checking you out. And I want to know because I want to study so that I can make sure that I can understand so I can teach others. I'm not going to go up here and just, And so those are the things that we have to do. We have to search the word. He says, what was a noble bereaved? They searched the word. Not just Paul said it. No, they went back and they searched it and they saw that these things are so. And so that's what Yahweh is calling us to be. Noble Bereans. That's right. So that, before, the generation before us wasn't noble Bereans. That's why they said that this was heresy. Now, all you had to do was just, really study. You would have saw that these people were black. But they were kicked out of the church, and they were ostracized, and they were doing just like they did the rest of them. And that's what happened. And so let us realize that the times that we live in, okay, this is what we have to do. There is no escaping. Okay, we can't go backwards. Now remember, if you go backwards, what are you saying? I don't want to go into the Canaan land. I don't want to go. And you will die in the 40-year wilderness. I mean, that's a guarantee. There is no, in between. So let us, hopefully we become more serious. Notice what John said. Howbeit, when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all truth. Now, I used this scripture on Dr. Cainho Felder. I don't know if y'all know him. He wrote the African Heritage Study Bible. He was the editor of the book. So I had sent him my book, People of Color in the Bible, or I called them. They said, you should have him look at it. So I sent it to him. I spoke with him on the phone, and he said, okay. How many theologian classes have you taken to study under the white man? None. And I said, I thought the Bible said that he's going to guide you into all truth. He said, man, I heard that line all the time, man. Don't be telling me that garbage. I said, okay. So I sent him the book, and then I called him a month later. He said, send him 33 books. And I said, wait a minute. Aren't you the one who told me, hey, listen, man, I don't want to hear that. So the bottom line was that as we study and as the Spirit, as it says, that the Spirit will guide you into all truth. And I use that. And we need that because do you see how much deception is going on?
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't have him, we just lost. Remember the first question I asked? Is there any hope for us in this condition? No.
Right.
We need this. And that's what we have to be serious because the others have decided that what? Y'all ain't getting this. No. Because they know who we are. Right. We don't know who we are. Right. That's the key. And you ain't nothing. I don't care who you are. You ain't nothing if you ain't got the Spirit.
That's right.
No matter what color, no matter what Hebrew. Because remember, we got the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. How many righteous kings were in the northern kingdom?
Come on. Not one.
David and Solomon. That was it. And then they divided. And then, so don't, just because, there's Ahab and Jezebel and all of that, hey, that don't mean nothing. Just because you a Hebrew, that don't mean nothing. Lots of Hebrews have been wicked. And so the question is, are we going to be led by the Spirit? That is the question and the key. But you can't be led if you don't what? Study. I didn't say read. Everybody can read, but we ain't talking about reading. We're talking about studying. He will guide you into all truth. He shall not speak for himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. That's where last day events comes in, and where we are in time. Notice what Thessalonians says. Let no man deceive you. Why? Are you telling me that deception is going to be everywhere? By any means. And they're using how many means? All means.
Right.
For that day shall not come except there come a what? What does that mean? Who's he talking to? The church. And what is he telling the church? What is a falling away? Somebody go fall off a cliff? Falling away from the truth. That means the church will go into what? Apostasy. I remember when I accepted and I wanted to start studying in the 70s about Yahweh, and I went to a church. I said, man, what is this, heresy? This is apostasy. I mean, it was that clear. And the guy said, shh. We got an underground church, where we teach the truth. I'm like, wow. They got a fake church on the top. You hear me? In the middle of D.C., the capital. Wow. Do you understand what's going on? It's all about the 70s. That's a long time ago. We're talking about way back then. Just imagine what it is today. Just imagine. Matter of fact, I remember they said at some churches back in the 60s, if you marched, your name would be removed from the church roll. Did y'all know that? Some see, there she goes. Somebody said yes, they did hear. What'd she say?
I went to HBCU as well. We learned lots of things.
There you go. So, man, that's... And I remember some people believe that when your name is written on the church roll in earth, it's written where? And when they remove your name on earth, it is removed in heaven. That is the most heretic they can be. Because that's how they keep people in the church. And I'm like, really? Wow. So, I mean, yeah. So this falling away is real. It was prophesied. We are in the midst, and you were born into it. Remember that. We didn't ask to come. You know, this is where we are. But we need to understand where we are. And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Notice what it says in Matthew. I like this verse so much. It's really, this is the one I'm going to start with when we go into verse seal. Matthew 24, verse 4 and 5. And Yeshua answered and said unto them, take heed that what? No man deceive you.
Right.
Who's he talking to? His disciples. He's telling, wait, how can the disciples be deceived? For many shall come in my name. In the name of who? Jesus. Saying that Jesus is the Christ. And will deceive many. Now, who comes in the name of Christ? It's the key word, Christian. Saying that they must say that Jesus is the what? And they are deceiving what? The whole world. Now, and I remember when I read that, they told me, listen now, brother. Now, this is talking about the Muslims. This is talking about the Buddha. This is talking about this is talking about everybody that doesn't say Jesus is the Christ. And I was, I just believed it. Naive and belief. I believed him until finally, like I said, the Spirit wakes you up. Amen. Did you read that? It didn't say anything about people that don't say that. It said the people that do say that. And I was like, wow. Now, how could you read that and not understand it? That means you're blind. I mean, I was blind. Hey, I'm not going to deny it. Hey, I was blind. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it. And so most people are still blind. And if we wake them up, hopefully they will, that they'll say everything is A-OK. So, back into this time frame. The Messiah, around 33 AD, when he finished his ministry, we have the stoning of Stephen. Now, who are these? These are what they call the what? Heretics. They called Yeshua a blasphemer. The stoning of Stephen. Okay? So, when you teach the truth and when you're into this truth, I don't want you to think that, everything will be okay now. That we're going to be on bed of roses. No, it's not going to be that way. And if it is, you better check out where you are. Because there's something wrong. Because that's not the way it was. But now the church council started around 300 AD. And then we have the pickup of the Moors ruling. And they were burning all of the books and all of that information such that you couldn't find it again. Then we had already John the Baptist in the beginning. And then we had the church propaganda. And remember, we also had during that time what? The authorized book that everyone will use. Okay? So these are the things that we have to keep in mind. Now, when we talk about the Moors and that time frame, we talked about something happening in 1492. Who remembers? Before I put it up there. That's when the Moors, that's right, that's when the last Moor was kicked out. And then what happened? For that 100 years, between the 1500s all the way to 1600, what happened? Propaganda was in 1622, but what happened before propaganda? That's when they burnt the stuff, and that's when they started what? Writing Bible commentaries. And that's when the Pope said that the slaves, that blacks will be slaves forever.
Forever.
Because of this event. Now, all of this happened in 100 years. Do you hear me? 1500, 1600. And then they said, now that we got it all written up, now we're giving you the authorized book. And we talking about that sanctioned scholars, and you will quote only us. And this is how it came about. And then that's when they said they can murder and kill, Inquisition, anything for the what? To keep the propaganda going. Because that's the propagation of the what? Of their faith. Not of the faith. Of their faith. And we have 1611 edition. Remember, there was a race in the history authorizing scholars of Germany and mainly Great Britain. Those are the most racist groups. They're the ones who was writing and scholarly all of this material. As we said, they were burning the books, and they were taking things and putting them in dungeons. Now, a lot of the technology and stuff that we have today, a lot of it was way back in the past. And I believe these guys got that stuff in the Vatican and these other places and in Europe, and they're studying it. That's how they get what they get. And we have the King James and the Moors. And so, as we can see, so for this 1,000 years that we've been under, okay, we said take heed that no man deceive you. Okay. Put that on pause. Stolen. That their legacy have been stolen. Their existence have been credited to a false claim. According to Josephus in chapter 5, this is what he says. There were some also who passed over the sea in ships and inhabited the islands. This was at the beginning, after the flood. And some of those nations do still retain the denominations which were given them by their first founders, or given them by their names. But some have lost them also, and some have only admitted certain changes to them. Now, who is admitting that they made changes to the people who first founded the lands? That they might be more intelligible to the inhabitants. And they were the who? Greeks, who became the authors of such what? Mutations. What is a mutation? We got some biologists here. Biology backgrounds. What is a mutation?
Altering.
Alternating, yes. It's like you have something, then you have something else, and now it's GMO, all right? Genetically modified. Now, I like that. Because are we being genetically modified? I'm not even talking about through the food. I'm talking about through the brain. And of course, through the food. Notice what else. For when after ages they grew potent, talking about the Greeks, they claimed to themselves the glory of antiquity. Now, when you go to school, they say, when does history begin? With the Greeks. Wait a minute, the Greeks only came around in 300 BC. What happened to the 4000 BC guys? Oh, let's find out. Okay, giving names to the nations that sounded well in Greek. Okay, so you're going to hear different names that are named, but it's the same people, but they keep changing the names, that they might be better understood among themselves, not amongst you, amongst themselves, and setting agreeable forms of government over them, as if they were people derived from themselves. What is this? What are they saying? He's making mention to us that the Greeks would rewrite history, and it would be his story, and everything would begin with them. And they became arrogant, potent. And then it says that they would set agreeable governments over them. So when they took over Africa and South Africa and so forth, what did they do? They set up governments over them, and now the South Afrikaners want to say that they what? African. Yo.
Right.
And set up the governments over them. Do you know that I was speaking to a Kenyan and different ones, and I was asking the question, okay, do you have a calendar? No, we use the British calendar. Why do you celebrate Christmas? Why are you speaking English? Do you have a language? Oh yeah, we have Swahili. Swahili is not an African language. That's an Arab language. So you don't even know. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're in Africa and you're supposed to be free. What set of government do you have over you? The same British one, same American one, same thing. Can you believe this? This was written at the time of the Messiah. This is around 30 AD. And this is what they're telling you is going on then and today? I mean, I can't even believe it. How come you don't know your language? How come you don't understand your own calendar? How come you don't have a calendar? I mean, you did have a calendar. How come you lost everything? But this is what happened. And they don't understand that that's what happened. And so we're in the same position, right? But we know there's another government set up over us. Even though we think we're going to infiltrate it and take it over, that ain't happening. So anyway, he was giving us this to let us know of what mutation or what cyborgs we will become. That's where we find ourselves. And I thought that was interesting. The Americans. Are the people who call themselves American today the true Americans? No. Who are the Americans of today? Europeans? African? Chinese? People from all around the world who come here? Nope. The true Native Americans, we talked about this before, are placed in where? Concentration camps. They don't call them that. They say they're there on reservations. Yeah. Prison? Really, guys? And the first thing, now I don't know if y'all have been on YouTube, there's these nations in India, on islands, and in South and Central America that have been hidden from the European and from this culture. And they are now going into there, and they are trying to get them to, come over. Some of them are killing the white man. Whenever they come, they say they're killing them all. No, because we don't want to have nothing to do with your society. Because you gonna come in and kill us. So we gonna kill you first. Right. And they're saying that they're the savages. And they're saying, no, we are the savages. Now who's telling the truth? But you don't hear their voice on the news. So they have come to the point that that's where they are. And so when they infiltrate them, they say, okay, they bring, guess who in first? The missionaries. And then they tell them you need to change, and then they get one to convert. And then he says, now you got to convert the other one. And then he says, the first thing that they give them is, guess what? Liquor and tobacco. Get them drunk so they can't figure out what's going on, and kill them off quick. I'm saying, wait a minute, that's the trick you did, it was a long time ago. They're still using the same trick today. Now, if you tell people that they use the missionaries to, to do this, they'll be saying, nah. But it's happening today. It happened in the past. I remember a friend of mine, he was my professor, he's from Nigeria, and he told me that his father was Islamic, and so he was told that for him to eat, the missionaries would feed him only if he converted. Then they said, okay, now that you convert, then we're going to send you to school, but you got to change your name. And if you notice, most Africans don't have African names. His name is John, and this and that and the other. You got to come up with a European Christian name. Wow, they did all of that in the name of who? Jesus. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, what else did they take? And he said, do not interact with African Americans. Do never go to an African American church, never. And for years, he was going to white churches. He was scared. I mean, okay, why do they want to change your name? Because your name in the African tradition, in the biblical tradition, tells you who you are and what your purpose is in life.
That's right.
And so they were taking that from him so that now your purpose is to be what? A European with a European name and get with the program. I mean, I don't know if y'all have spoken with Africans before. One of my sisters said that one people from Central America was told that the streets were paved with gold in America. Do y'all believe it? Do y'all believe this? And now you understand why the Bible says they that come in the name of Jesus, say Jesus is Christ, they will deceive you. I'm like, wow. I mean, and people really believe this stuff. They like heaven on earth. So, I guess in Palisades, they thought, that they had it, they were in heaven till that place burned down. Okay, so the true Americans are put in concentration camps and reservations. The Native Americans that had to flee south to Mexico because of the warfare, but now when they want to come back as Mexicans, they are labeled illegal aliens. It's his story has been changed so much that those that are the true Native Americans are called illegal aliens, and those who are wiped out, the true Native people, who are the true illegal aliens, are called the Americans. Now, I mean, we can see this. We can agree with this, right? Man, you tell that to some of these privileged white people, they tell you, Emanuel, you are insane. How can you believe that? Like I told you, one guy told me point blank, why do y'all call yourself African Americans? Y'all should just call yourself Americans like me. But I said, you're not an American, you're a European American. Man, want to kill me. So, the truth is, I don't even know what to say. The truth is cutting us to the heart. The truth is changing and stirring up something. And we have to be willing to understand it so that we can understand what colonialization is. Who is living today in Egypt? Are they Africans? How do you know that? Somebody, how do you know that? You can tell by what they look like. They're Arabs. It's just like somebody saying, the true Americans run this government. No, the Arabs run that government. They took over the African northern part. Matter of fact, I had somebody who was working with me on my book, People of Color. She was able to help on my job with the pictures. And she was going through it. She said, yes, I'm Egyptian. I'm a white African. I'm like, you can't be serious. They really believe that. They said, and she told me, now in history, that's what they said. Everything south of Egypt is black Africa and the pyramids. Everything that's north of that That's white Africa. Don't you know that? How you gonna tell me, how you gonna divide, draw a line in the sand and call one white Africa, one black Africa? But we're not saying that, I mean, she had no she didn't mean to do me any harm. She's just brainwashed. And she believes it, and she will kill you for it. So this is what I'm saying. We believe a lie so much that we're willing to die for it. I mean, speak with some of these people out here. If you don't believe me, who are they? They are Arabs. They are colonialists. The Arabs have done to Africa what the Europeans have done to the true Native Americans. So they go around the world doing this. Libya, who are they? They're in North Africa. That's called what? White Africa. How many of y'all heard about that? How many of y'all go, in school? Have y'all been taught that in school? That's what I'm being taught, that this is the stuff that's being taught in school. Yes. I'm just telling you, man. This is, oh my goodness. I mean, if people can't understand the basics as truth, what are they going to do about the deep stuff? I mean, this is just, a kid can tell you this. Everything south of the second cataract of the Nile River is black Africa, because there's no pyramids down there, or the older pyramids are not there. What is an Arab Caucasian? In the land of Canaan, we have today what we call Iran and Iraq, with the Tigris and the Euphrates River. Who are they? You know, if you're an Arab, they consider themselves Caucasians. Y'all know that?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought if you had one drop of black blood, you were black. I thought, the rules keep changing. Okay? The Arabs believe and teach that they are Caucasians. Why do the Arabs live in Africa? No, that's white Africa. We don't live in Africa. We live in white Africa. Okay. Wow. Arabs who live in Egypt run parts of Africa and the biblical land of Canaan today. So, you won't expect to find a lot of, clear good stuff, from the Egypt of today. So, when talking about a particular people in a land or a group of people, one must consider the time frame we are talking about. Okay? Y'all understand that? Because here in America, we go 1,000 years back, what do we have? Native Americans. Now, if we come to today, they don't exist except on reservations, and now we have others. So you have to look at the time frame. So things will be changing. So when we're reading in the Bible that there's a certain group of people somewhere, and then we find out decades later or 1,000 years later, like today, they were African, and now what are they? They're what they call themselves Caucasian. So you must consider the time frame and the landmass, because people are moving in and out all the time. As an example, of 500 BC to 2000 AD, as we talked about here in America, one must figure out which land masses are we talking about. Three major things. If we're going to find out about the people, we need to understand the land, the location, and the time frame we're talking about. Because the movement of people, as you will see over time, changes. This will stop you from getting people mixed up, like the European Jews with the people of the Bible. Now, they'll tell you today, don't you know who's in Israel? The European Jews. So they're the same people that were over there 2,000 years ago. And that's a lie. But they can use that because they have taken over and colonized and taken over certain areas. They have nothing to do with each other. They say they are Jews, but are not. But are what? There you go. Behold, I make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews but are not, but do lie. Behold, I make them to come and worship at thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. What truth? I hope we can understand that because nothing can be further from the truth. This is what has been implanted in our minds through many avenues. Therefore, this is what we see and perceive to be what? True. Is it? But we perceive it to be that way because we've been what? Programmed. We must understand, one, who are the people? What time frames are we talking about? And what location are we talking about? The Greeks. Do not let people deceive you by saying, you do not see me in history. So I'm going to put myself in history if I'm not there. When we talk about time, you are going to see how important it is. When the Greeks came on the stage of action and conquered the different lands, when they came to Egypt and saw the knowledge and the civilization of Egypt, they could not believe their eyes. The Greeks called the Romans barbarians once they were civilized by the African Egyptian way of life. Then the Romans called the Germans barbarians also once they were civilized by the African Egyptians way of life. So as you can see that the Greeks would come in, and in my book we talk about it, that the Greeks thought we were gods, Homer and so forth. They thought that we were the gods when they came in, Homer and Rhodius and all of them. Then as time went on, then when they came in and they went to the schools, they went and what? That's where you got Pythagoras, that's where you got Plato, that's where you got all of these people. They went and learned from the Africans what? In their colleges and universities. And so then when they were being conquered by the Romans, then they called them barbarians, even though they were the first barbarians. Then when Rome got civilized and Rome said, okay, we got it together, then when they started getting conquered by the Germans, then they say they are barbarians. Because they never had any civilization, they didn't have anything. And so now, as time went on, who were the people running the planet? The barbarians, who the Romans called barbarians. Okay? And so we see ourselves in this situation that's not cool. The Greeks that make Greece famous all studied in Egypt, which is in Africa. But they'll tell you, I remember one tourist who told me that those, they were black people, but they were white people and black skin. Yeah, it's in my book. We quote it. I'm like, I mean, you guys are really, ridiculous. But they believe it. That's the worst part. They believe it. The Greeks would take the knowledge of Egypt and rewrite it in Greek and then Latin. Then they would hide the Egyptian books and burn them so no one would ever know what is true. And what are they doing today? They have what? Taken the books, the ancient books of the Bible, and what did they do? They said that these are forbidden. But we have given you an authorized version. And then we're going to give you Bible commentaries to go along with it. And so that's how they did it. And they rewrite it. And now today, okay, let me ask you a question. How could we not know that this ain't our book? How could anybody fool us? They put the pictures in there, that's right. They put out the 10 Commandments, the movie, Yul Brynner, King of Africa, Charles Heston, Moses. And every year they put out more and more and more until and then the Muslims, he's saying, this is a white man's book. Man, did you read the daggone thing? I know, right? But we said it first. That's why they said it. And so, they have pulled the wool over our eyes, and guess who else's eyes? The whole world, even themselves. They believe a lie rather than the truth. Josephus said, according to Josephus, the Greeks would rewrite his story and put themselves in ancient history where they were never to deceive the masses and make the Greeks sound good to the reader. And that is exactly what we have today. And as we quoted this before, I just want to highlight the main parts that the Greeks at the end. It says that the Greeks would become the authors of such mutation. And the other part, it says that they grew potent, and they claimed all the glory of antiquity to themselves. So that means everything came from where? Greece. And none came from us. So guess what? This book is what? Has to be converted. The Bible cannot be a black man book. No way. We have to make it what? And that's what they did. And then they would set up governments over you that you were perpetuating. That's why I asked the Africans, why don't you have a calendar? Why don't you have your own? Because they set up governments over them so that they would lose their identity. And they would think that the governments of Nigeria and all these governments today are governments that are from what? Africans real. No, these are governments set up by what? Europeans to perpetuate the European mentality, and we as African Americans, we go over there thinking we learning what? We trying to get out the identity, and we saying you guys more brainwashed than us. At least we know we brainwashed. You guys don't even know it. That is not funny. That is really not funny. I mean, that is our, and that's why I said this is a sad situation. This is really a sad situation. And, you know, and some of them pride that, yes, I'm a British citizen. And y'all pride yourself in white supremacy. Oh, man, this is, Yahweh help us. So this is what I mean by the stolen legacy. When you go to school, they always begin by teaching you to start with the Greeks or Greece. The Greeks rewrote history to start with themselves, which is labeled his story. He said, I never hid this from you. I didn't lie to you. I told you it was what? My story. Now, if you want to be a fool to believe my story, then that's on you. And that's like deep. I mean, you are right. You did tell me it is your story. Wow. I mean, so, and they said the truth could be right before your eyes and you not even see it. Then the Europeans would have us to believe that no one had history before the Greeks. Stolen legacy explains how the Greeks stole everything they had from the ancient Africans of ancient Egypt. But not just the ancient Africans of ancient Egypt, the ancient Africans of what? Of the book. Now you understand why I've been talking about this book and going back to the book, so you could see that, hey, something devilish has happened. Okay? We're going to pause here, and I'm going to go to my next